I'm going to need you to switch seats for a VIP passenger.
It'd just be a quick swap, man. Appreciate it.
No, I'm not moving. And for the record, I am counsel with the State Bar and a licensed civil rights attorney. This is a paid confirmed seat.
The flight attendant's smiles froze when he handed over his ticket. A calm black man in a tailored suit, briefcase in hand, ready to take his seat like everyone else. But something shifted in the air. That familiar, heavy silence that comes before humiliation. The attendant leaned closer, whispering words that made nearby passengers glance up, curious, uncomfortable. He was asked to move. Not for safety, not for a family to sit together, but for a VIP passenger who'd prefer more space. He looked at her. Then at the man already approaching with entitlement written on his face. What happened next would silence an entire cabin and expose how easily dignity can be denied at 30,000 feet. Watch until the end. Wait a second. Tell us where you're watching from in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more powerful stories like this. Miles Carter wasn't just another passenger. He was a successful civil rights attorney, flying home after winning a discrimination case that had made national headlines. Years of study, exhaustion, and late nights had finally paid off. He boarded Flight 237 feeling something rare, peace. He took seat 4A, window side, smiled at the flight crew, and settled in. His briefcase, worn from years of courtroom battles, rested beneath his feet. Around him, conversations hummed, children laughed, and the faint scent of coffee filled the air. It was supposed to be an ordinary flight, just 2 hours home. But as boarding finished, Miles noticed the subtle shift. Whispers between attendants, a frown, a glance in his direction. He brushed it off at first. He'd learned to ignore the small things, the uneasy looks, the silent questions about why he was in first class, until the chief attendant stopped at his row, clutching a passenger list and forcing a polite smile that didn't reach her eyes. That's when peace ended. "Sir, would you mind moving to another seat? We have a VIP passenger joining us, and he specifically requested this one." Her tone was soft, but the message was sharp. Miles blinked, unsure he'd heard right. Around him, heads turned, subtle, pretending not to. He asked calmly if there was a mistake, but her smile stiffened. "It's just airline policy, sir. We appreciate your understanding." He knew what that meant. The policy that bends for privilege and breaks for people like him. He glanced at the man standing nearby, white, middle-aged, confident, his designer bag already half lifted. No hesitation, no guilt. The man was already waiting for him to move, as if it were a given. Miles felt the familiar weight in his chest, that quiet, suffocating mix of anger and disbelief. Years of courtroom victories, degrees, and advocacy couldn't protect him from the subtle reminder. In moments like this, all they saw was his skin. He sat still. "I'd like to keep my assigned seat," he said evenly. The attendant's expression shifted, a flicker of irritation beneath politeness. She disappeared toward the galley. Minutes later, 2 more staff approached. Passengers began whispering. Phones tilted up. The air felt electric with discomfort. "Sir, if you refuse to comply, we'll have to delay takeoff," one said. He looked around, a silent jury watching. He could hear his mother's voice in his head, reminding him that dignity isn't negotiable. Then, instead of arguing, Miles quietly opened his briefcase, pulled out a folder, and placed it on his lap. Inside were case files from the discrimination trial he'd just won, one of them against an airline. He said nothing, just waited. Moments later, a uniformed airline manager boarded the plane. His smile was tight, his voice rehearsed. "Mr. Carter, I understand there's been a misunderstanding." Miles didn't speak. He handed over his business card, crisp, white, embossed with his law firm's name. The manager read it. The color drained from his face. Around them, passengers shifted, whispering. Someone murmured, "He's a lawyer." Another whispered, "Civil rights attorney." The VIP passenger's confidence faltered. He looked away, suddenly small. The manager stammered out an apology, trying to laugh it off, insisting it was a mix-up. But the damage was done, not just to one man, but to everyone who'd watched. Miles stood up slowly, looked around the cabin, then said, calm, unwavering, that he would file an official complaint and hold the airline accountable for its treatment. And he did. The flight eventually took off, but not before a quiet shift swept through the cabin. Passengers who had looked away before now met his eyes with quiet respect, and maybe guilt. The VIP sat rigid and silent in another row, avoiding his gaze entirely. By the time they landed, news had already spread. A passenger's video, shaky but clear, had captured the exchange. Within hours, it went viral. Prominent civil rights attorney asked to move for VIP passenger. The headline burned across every social feed. The airline released a public apology, promising an internal review, but the moment was larger than one apology. It was a mirror, reflecting how easily respect can be stripped away, even from someone who has spent his life defending others. For Miles, the victory wasn't in the public outrage or the settlement that followed. It was in the quiet truth that silence is no longer an option, because sometimes justice doesn't start in a courtroom. It begins when someone refuses to move. He closed his briefcase that night, exhausted but proud. Somewhere above the noise, he knew his mother's words still rang true. Dignity is not given. It's taken back, and maybe, just maybe, that flight reminded the world that some VIPs aren't seated in first class. They're the ones who refuse to give up their seat at all. Which country and city are you watching from? Take care.